What is up, guys, and welcome back to Walnut Street Podcast. This podcast is all about normal people like you and I sharing extraordinary stories. And today's episode is going to be no different. My best friend Andy and my new friend Isaiah Davis, they kill it in today's episode. But before we go any further, you already know the drill. If you've enjoyed these episodes, would you just do us this tiny little favor? Would you hit that like button? Would you hit that subscribe button? Most of our viewers aren't subscribed to the channel yet. Can you imagine that? Maybe turn on those notifications to be notified every single time Walnut Street Podcast drops an episode. Guys, we're truly so thankful that you've watched, that you've been watching, and maybe get in those comments today and share how this story has impacted you for the better. Guys, again, thanks so much for tuning in today and enjoy this conversation. We are here with Isaiah Davis, man. Thanks for being here today.
You are welcome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, tell our listeners, who is Isaiah Davis?
So I grew up here in North Manchester. I went to high school here. Graduated 2019. My mom is Katie Cumberland. Most people probably know her by Katie's Isle. She has a bunch of siblings that all lived here, grew up here. So, growing up, I would always have people come up and say hi to me. And most of the time I wouldn't know who they were just because they knew my family. So, I played sports in high school. I did basketball, soccer, track, was involved with like campus life and youth group, stuff like that growing up. But, kind of ended up going a different way as I got older. But yeah, as of now, I'm living in Tennessee and just working in ministry now, which, how I got there is pretty crazy. So yeah, I guess that's a little glimpse of who I am.
That's awesome. I mean, a lot of people that are in ministry would be like, I want to be in Tennessee too. I mean, I'm drawing
right.
pictures now, thinking of the church in the mountains. Like, man, he's in a good place.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah.
So let's just start from the beginning. I mean, you're here to share your story. So you grew up in church,
yeah,
and in youth. Mm-hmm. Where did that path change for you?
So as I got into probably end of junior high, beginning of high school, I don't know, I just kind of started doing dumb things with my friends. And so, I'm glad that I grew up in church, and had the morals kind of instilled in me. But I kind of took the gospel with a grain of salt, I guess, if that makes sense. I didn't take it very, I knew that Jesus died for me, right? But I guess I never felt the weight of my sin to understand how much that really meant. And so then getting into high school and stuff, I start kind of partying and smoking weed, drinking, vaping, just not living a very righteous life, I guess you could say. And so, yeah, that just kind of progressed more and more, sophomore year, junior year. There were times that I would get in trouble with my parents, and then that just caused me to be even more rebellious, and they would try to ground me. I would sneak out, just not a good kid. I still had a lot of those morals. I still try to respect people, and just, not be an awful person, but I just wasn't making good decisions. And so yeah, definitely in high school is when I kind of started to really veer from, the path, I guess you could say,
Was that just trying to fit in, or just peer pressure, or did it, did any of that, force you that direction, or?
Right. That's what my mom would always ask me that. And it's kind of funny because when I first started smoking weed and drinking, I actually influenced my friends around me to try it with me. So it was I don't really know. Even to this day, I've thought about it a lot, and I'm not sure what it was. I think I was just curious. I think part of it was wanting to not necessarily fit in, but be cool, or be cooler than other people maybe. And, because then I started taking pride in knowing oh yeah, I'm 14 years old smoking weed and getting drunk on the weekends, like, which is not something to be like proud of at all whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, at first it was just like innocent fun, but started to grow into something much more than just innocent fun. So yeah.
So speaking of being curious, before we go any further, I always have to work in the drink. So today, everyone knows we always drink the Ghosts.
Yeah.
Tyler calls it the Holy Ghost. Today we're trying Sour Patch Kids Red Berry. I've not had this one.
I've never even had a Ghost.
Really?
So first
All right.
time ever. Yeah.
So let's pop these open. We are not currently sponsored by Ghost yet, but we're waiting for that phone call.
Oh, we're getting there.
Let's go.
Oh, wow. That actually tastes just like a red Sour Patch Kid.
I think they did a good job on
Yeah.
the label. It tastes like it looks.
How much caffeine's in it?
Way too much.
200. All right. That's a pretty good amount.
I was telling Tyler that we need to drink these before we go on air. That way, when we're talking real heated, real fast, really bring up the conversation, make it real quick.
Right. It matches your shirt, actually. So
Yeah.
that's like...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so for everyone, I thought we were not in front of the window today, so I thought I'd wear something bright. Didn't need to wear something bright today.
No.
Is there a glow about me?
Yeah.
Is it good?
Got the light of Jesus flowing through you.
Yeah, anyways. All right, back to you, man. So you say you were an influencer in high school? I mean, you had people following you, or you just didn't want to do stuff alone?
I had like two really close best friends, like definitely like start of high school. They were made in like middle school and stuff. But we were, it was us three musketeers, I guess you could say, going into high school. And so like we all started doing this stuff. And then, yeah, I would say we kind of influence others to, do it with us, and stuff like that. And so, not that I'd ever necessarily like peer pressure people, but I was really good at manipulating people into thinking it was their idea to try it to begin with,
Okay.
So yeah. And then by the time we were seniors, most of the people in our class were participating with us anyways. So yeah, that's I was definitely always more of a leader, just, which, I'm now realizing, is a gift that God has given me, but I was using it for the wrong purposes, leading people the opposite direction instead of to him, so yeah.
So that's cool that you have felt that on your life. You just didn't know how to use it.
Yeah. And like at the time I had no idea, but like looking back, now I can see like, oh man, God's given me these gifts and I was using them, for all the wrong purposes. But, now I try to do my best to, give back to him since he gave me these gifts and to use them for his purposes and to serve him. So yeah, but it took me a while to get to that realization and that understanding really. So yeah.
So you graduate high school then.
Yeah.
Very active in sports, looking at college. What's that look like?
Yeah. So I, in between my junior and senior year, I went to a couple different colleges, like visiting, went to Bethel University, at the time I was doing, I did track all throughout high school. Really loved track, did high jump, long jump, was decent enough at it to, get some offers. And, so I went to Bethel, talked to the track coach, really liked, how they ran their track team and how close they were. And it was a Christian college. And so I was like, yeah, I think this is where I want to go. And they gave me an offer. And so right before my senior year, I signed with Bethel, and committed to going to Bethel. And so my senior year was pretty laid back because I wasn't stressing like everybody else, like, oh, I got to get my application in, or I got to go check out this place. And I was just like, I'm all set, like they already accepted me. Like, yeah, I didn't I mean, I didn't like not try, but I definitely was just like having fun all senior year.
Wasn't like a case of senioritis where you're just kind of floating by.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like I was probably in senioritis all year, you know, like. But I had like easy classes. Like I had like 2 study halls, and I had like advanced PE where we're just like playing kickball and like, you know, like, so I was just having a good time the whole
life is
year.
good.
Yeah, for real. So then I graduated 2019, and then I went end of 2019. I went to college and started competing in track and field at Bethel University.
So at this time, does your family, do your parents know that you're dabbling in drugs or drinking and partying the way you are? I mean, were they aware of what was going on?
Yeah. So my mom first caught me when I was 15. Yeah, it was like beginning of sophomore year. She found out from another parent. You know, it's a small town, so, you know, word gets around. And I wasn't doing a good job of trying to keep it a secret because, like I said, I was prideful about it. You know, I'm like posting it on my story and like, you know, like it's well known that I'm like this partier or whatever. Me and my friends are. And so a parent had told my mom and my stepdad. And so that was beginning of sophomore year. And so, you know, ever since then, you know, from then until probably like my senior year, me and my mom, we were butting heads like really bad. Like sophomore year, they grounded me after that. And so like I wasn't really doing anything because I was grounded. And then at some point I got ungrounded and I tried to hide it better. But like my junior year, it was bad, you know, because like I wasn't really trying to hide it. I was just fighting with my parents constantly, sneaking out all the time. At this point, my mom only knows about weed and like drinking some, which, you know, I think she was more concerned about the weed because the possibility of being like a gateway drug and, you know, the fact that it's illegal. Obviously, drinking underage is illegal, but you can get in a lot more trouble getting caught with weed. And so, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that? So, yeah.
So they knew what was going on.
Yeah, she knew what was going on. By the time I hit my senior year, she just was more concerned about me being safe. She knew what I was doing. She just wanted me to be smart. Obviously, she didn't like it at all, but like I was so rebellious. She just wanted to love me through it, basically, which now I'm super grateful. Because if like we would have just kept butting heads, then, you know, it could have went a completely different direction.
Because there probably wasn't anything that she could do to make you stop that, right? At that time? I mean...
No, not really. I mean, unless she wanted to keep punishing me, which would have just like made me, you know, at the time hate her even more, you know?
So I'm trying to think from a parent's standpoint, what could, you know, could it have been avoided?
Right.
Or what could a parent do in that situation to better the situation? I think your mom did it right. You love them through it, you know?
And there's been times like now that she's asked me like, was there something that I should have done different? Or like, and I was like, I'm always just like, you did everything you could, you know, like, you know, her and my dad never got married. And so, you know, that father figure is really supposed to be that disciplinary figure, you know? And so my mom kind of had to play both roles. I mean, I had my stepdad who would also discipline me, but he worked a lot too. So it wasn't like he was there all the time to see everything, you know? And so, I mean, that's a tough spot to be in as a mom, to try to be that loving, caring, nurturing mom, but then also have to take the role of a disciplinary father, you know? And me being, you know, my narcissistic, manipulative self, I just took advantage of that, you know, and I'd make her feel terrible. Like you know, we're good now. Like me and my mom are closer. She's the closest person to me probably, but there was a time in my life where I treated her very, very poorly, you know? But yeah, anytime she like tries to say stuff like that, I'm like, Mom, you did the best you possibly could, you know? And that's what I would tell any parent that's struggling with a kid, you know, being rebellious is obviously there has to be some discipline, but the biggest thing, the number one thing is love and just loving them through that. Because then later on in my life, when I started going through these really, really difficult things with like addiction and stuff like that, she was the first person I turned to because I knew that no matter what, she was going to love me through that, you know, and do whatever she could to try to help me, you know? So yeah. Thank you, Mom.
That's great, man. So we're in college.
Yeah.
And what's college looks like?
So that first year was that first semester was very tough. Trying to learn how to balance now schooling and college, which is a lot different than high school, and then also trying to be an athlete, having practice every day. And then I was also working at the same time, not a lot, but just a little bit to try to make some money.
And you're in what? You're track, right?
Yeah, track and field.
So I'm oblivious to what training for track. Do you just run all the time?
So I was recruited for jumping, like high jump, long jump. And so, depending on your events, it will be different things. 3 times a week, we would do weight training. And then we would do, since I was part of like the sprinter/jumper group, we would do like short sprints consistently. And, a lot of it is really getting the form down. Like it sounds funny saying like running form, but there is a correct running form and you have to refine it if you want to be as fast as possible. And a lot of it is just repetition, trying to get that muscle memory. And so it's just like when you're in a meet, you're not really thinking about it. Your body just knows what to do. And so it's a lot of repetitions, stamina training, speed stamina training, and strength training. But our practices, they'd be 2 to 3 hours, not necessarily practicing for that long, but, you stretch before, afterwards, we're stretching, rolling out, taking ice baths, a lot of recovery with that too.
Now, are you still partying at this time and smoking and stuff? Because I'm thinking as an athlete, are you getting like, how's it affecting you as an athlete? Are you getting tested for stuff? Or, I don't know how that looks in college.
So
I
at
obviously
Bethel,
did not go there. College,
At Bethel, they never tested us. At Manchester, they would threaten it at times, but they never ended up doing it. So I know some high schools that do, and I know some colleges that do, but the ones that I went to, they just never did. For me, at least, I don't know. I can't speak for other people. But at the time, I didn't feel like it was affecting me because I was still doing fairly well. But now, now that I'm sober, I'm not doing, I don't smoke or drink or vape or any of that stuff, and I'm working out. I can see how much that was hindering me, now because of how much progress I've made, with weight training, strength training, all that stuff without doing any of that, because that's all it is. It's just, putting stuff in your lungs or like alcohol, all that stuff. It just hinders you, from being, athletically wise, performing at your best ability. And so I was definitely still smoking a lot in college. I was gonna quit because I was going to a Christian college, and so I was like, "There's no way anybody there is gonna smoke." And then like the first like 5 friends I made were all like stoners, so I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm definitely not gonna quit now," And so that continued on, and we would go to like Notre Dame on the weekends and like party and stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely didn't see any point in stopping what I was doing, I guess. So
when you started college, did the partying, did it ramp up? Because I'm thinking, okay, now we're adults.
Yeah.
Is that easier to get alcohol? Is it easier to get the drugs or whatever that that scene has? Did it ramp up in college? I
actually think comparatively to like my junior and senior year, I think it probably calmed down a little bit. The smoking probably went up, but like it was just me and my roommates smoking in my dorm kind of thing. But as for like the partying and drinking and stuff, I think that probably calmed down a little bit just because I'd done it so much, like junior and senior year specifically, that I was like, I don't really see. We still did, but like just not as much. And we were pretty busy. I was trying to, I was like, I remember I was failing like calculus, and I was going for computer science. And so like, I had like a lot of really hard classes, and I was trying to keep up with them. And so it was pretty difficult to like try to go out on the weekend knowing that I have like 10 hours of homework that I need to get done. So yeah, I would say it chilled out just a little bit,
Did smoking weed and stuff, did that help your grades at all? Because I'm asking from the standpoint where I've never done anything like that.
Right.
And I know there's somebody out there saying, "Oh yeah, when you're doing that, it helps, or maybe you're smarter, or it helps the brain."
Yeah. I was definitely that person that would say that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I know they're
It's
out
just an
there. I know
excuse.
somebody's saying that right now.
Yeah. No, it's just an excuse. I mean, or like a reason to try to validate why you should. I mean, it would obliterate my motivation to do anything except like watch TV and play video games, or go get food, or like, and people are like, well, it helps me sleep or it helps me eat. I'm sure it does, like it would for me, but now that I'm far removed from it, I've like slept the most, like, or gotten the best sleep over the last year. It's been over a year since I last smoked, and I've definitely gotten the best sleep I've ever had. Just over the last year, I'm eating way more and way better over this last year. So whenever people say that, I'm like, remove yourself from it for a month, 2 months, and like really dedicate to doing it. Your body's gonna go back to normal. You're gonna start sleeping normal. It's just you're dependent on it, and so you're needing it to sleep, or you feel like you are, mentally, or you're needing it to eat.
And how hard is that to let go and not do it?
So it's probably different for everybody. For me, so I quit smoking weed the same time I was quitting something else. And the other thing I was trying to quit had way worse effects than the weed. So they kind of masked like any withdrawal effects I would have of the weed, I guess you could say,
Okay.
And so,
What was the other thing?
fentanyl.
Oh,
Yeah. So I was kind of making my way towards there. Yeah. Seems like a pretty big jump, but there's definitely a progression of events. But, it just goes to show how, I mean, that was within a span of a year and a half, 2 years from college to, when I got seriously addicted to that. And so, the progression was actually very fast, and it's crazy because like when my mom, found out I was smoking weed when I was 15, one of the things she said is like, I'm just afraid that you're going to do these other drugs. And I was always like, Mom, I'm not, I just want to smoke weed. I don't want to do anything else, and then by the time I'm 20 years old, 5 years later, I'm like fully addicted to fentanyl, like who would have thought,
So you didn't see that coming?
No,
Fentanyl.
not at all.
Is that something you were introduced to in college?
No, so by the time I was in college, the only drugs that I had done have been like party drugs, like acid, Molly, shrooms, ecstasy.
And this is in a Christian college.
Yeah, which I wasn't introduced to all those at college.
Okay.
Like acid and shrooms, I had done in high school, and then when I got to college, I tried Molly and I tried ecstasy. With a couple of my friends that I had down there that like grew up in the area. So it was like, they knew where to go to get this stuff, and so, which again, I was never peer pressured. I wanted to do it. I was like, hey, I'm trying to do, XYZ. Do you know how we can make that happen? And so,
Are you still in sports during this time?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How'd that work out?
It didn't, again, I didn't feel like it was affecting me, but like I was just oblivious, like, yeah, I was just not making smart decisions at all. And like, I think part of me at this time in college, I was starting to get my anxiety was starting to get worse. I never really struggled with anxiety much in high school. But like college, I don't know, it was starting to get really bad. And like my depression and stuff like that. Because I think I just thought college was going to be a lot different. It was way harder. And then I was like constantly dealing with like, man, do I really want to do this? Like, what am I even doing here? Like, and so like towards the end of the first semester, I'd kind of just like given up. And so I remember I got put on academic probation. I had to talk with like my coach and my counselor and stuff like that. And they're like, look, we get it. This happens a lot with freshmen, first semester specifically. It's a wake up call. It's a lot different, And so we made some plans for the second semester to like do better, got some tutors, different stuff like that. And so second semester started, like, I don't know, probably like end of January, middle of January, because, college winter break is like really long. And so, I'm still obviously, smoking all that stuff, but I am like, I feel like a little more focused or maybe dedicated to trying to do better this semester. And I started off the semester pretty strong. At this point we had been in our indoor season for track and field. And so we were getting ready to go to outdoor season, which started like either end of March or beginning of April. But this was, 2020. And so by March, the whole season got canceled. Everyone got sent home, COVID. Mm-hmm. And so like, I've been trying to work hard and all this stuff. I've been doing good. And now all of a sudden, like all this stuff gets stripped away, and they're like, okay, we're moving to online. Well, I'm not an online kind of like not taking school. I need to be in a classroom face to face with a teacher, not in a Zoom call, And so, yeah, that was kind of like I don't know. That was hard. Getting sent home. And, since I was, as young as I can remember, I always identified with sports. Like that was my identity, one of my main identities at that time. And so, being able to continue doing it in college was huge for me. But then with me dealing with this, depression and wondering if I should even be doing this, all this stuff. And then COVID happens, season gets canceled, everybody gets sent home. I was just like, man, screw this. I'm not going back to college. I'm just going to start working, But that was still hard because like now I'm not competing anymore. I'm not really an athlete anymore, And so now I'm trying to find my identity in something else. And so I had a girlfriend at that time that I'd been dating for like 2 or 3 years, somewhere in there. And, not long after that had happened, so this was March of 2020. So I think it was like August or September of 2020. We had broken up. And again, she was, I was like idolizing her. So like I was putting my identity also in her as well. So like I get sports taken away and now she's gone. So I'm just like, I'm lost at this point, So the only thing I have left to hold on to, at least I felt like, was like drugs and alcohol, like partying and stuff. And so at this point, that's when all that stuff ramped up, like I'm starting to drink every day, or if I'm not drinking, doing some kind of drug, like weed was like, at this point, weed was like nicotine for me. Like no matter what, I was smoking every day, but what else am I doing? What else can I do today? So at this point I'd, been doing pain pills, drinking lean. If I couldn't get those, I was doing Molly or, like, honestly, I don't know how my brain isn't like, jelly at this point.
Well, my thought is, are you working at this time? I mean, what's your day?
Yeah.
So you're working
on
top of that.
So right after college, I actually got into like an electrical apprenticeship. And so, which is like, which is good. I was like, okay, I'm going to try to get my journeyman and be an electrician. And so I'm working there from like, I don't know, it was probably like 7 to maybe 3 or something like that. And then I'm getting off work and I'm just getting completely obliterated. And then waking up the next day and starting it all over again, and then the weekend would come and completely, obliterate myself during the weekend. And then, Monday would come around and it was just an everyday thing. And, I had like this invincible complex. Like I felt like nothing bad could happen to me. Like I would bounce back, like still make it to work. I don't think I was the best worker or most efficient.
That's my thought. What do those mornings look like? I mean, is that alarm go off and you're up and at it, or is it like a hangover kind of thing, or is it what kind of coworker are you at this time?
Honestly,
are you there?
I don't think the people I was working with, I don't think they, maybe they probably knew something was wrong, but I don't think they knew that I was like doing what I was doing, that I was so far off, I was still pretty distraught about like my breakup and stuff like that. And so I think if anything, they probably thought it had something to do with that. But yeah, I don't think they knew, like hangover. I should have. I don't know why. I just kind of would always, I don't know, I'd wake up and all right, we're going to go to work and, get this day over with so we can do it again, And so.
And that's addiction, right? I mean, that's the start of addiction. Like, let's do what we have to so we can.
Yeah. And so, I mean, at this point, like, I wouldn't say I was addicted to any one substance. I was just addicted to not feeling anything. I just didn't want to feel the emotions that I was going through, the lack of purpose that I was feeling. Like, all this, I don't know. I just didn't want to feel. So I was like, I'm going to do whatever I can to just not be in my reality, you know? I hated myself really, ultimately. I portrayed this like false confidence, but deep down, I just did not like who I was at all. I felt like a loser. You're not even in college. You're not competing, because I took so much pride in that. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to college and I'm going to be this track and field athlete and, all this stuff. And now, not even 8-9 months later, I'm not even doing that, dropped out of college, so it's like I was acting like I was still really confident in myself, but deep down I had like a lot of insecurities and just did not like myself at all whatsoever. And so, I started that electrician job like probably in April, but me and my girlfriend at the time had, we broke up in, I think it was September. And so, I was still working as an electrician, but again, I wasn't like a great worker at all, like I think I started off probably strong, but then once all these things started happening, I think I started to fall off. And so come November, I actually caught COVID. And like the same week I caught COVID, my boss calls me and tells me that I'm fired. And so I'm like, this sucks, you know? And so I remember, one of my best friends at that time, I like looked at him and I was like, dude, I got nothing left here. I was like, let's just get out of here. Like let's move away. And so that's what we did. Like from that point until, so this would have been like beginning of November until end of December, we kind of saved some money, did some apartment shopping, and ended up like, I think it was December 27th of 2020, we got an apartment in Mishawaka. And so, but let me rewind for a second. So at this point, September, I'm starting to do a lot more pain pills. Percocets, those were like the main ones that I would do, which are prescribed, like if you get, I don't know, surgery of any kind, a lot of times they'll give you like Percocets. And so, so me and my friends, we were doing quite a bit of those. I wouldn't say I was physically dependent to it yet, but I definitely had like a mental addiction. Like I craved to do it each day,
I have to ask, did you do those drugs and stuff while you had COVID?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
Yeah,
I know somebody out there's wondering, and I thinking back in my mind,
yeah.
Even in that situation, are you still living that lifestyle?
Which, to be fair, like when I got COVID, the only thing that really happened was I lost my smell and my taste. And it's actually funny, the way I kind of found out I had COVID was one of my friends, they had like gotten some weed and they're like, oh dude, this is some gas. Like, here, smell it, smell how fire.
Like, okay.
And I went to smell it and I was like,
it's scentless.
yeah.
It's new.
There's nothing
They're
there.
never gonna know.
Yeah, right. And so I was like, you got ripped off. I was like, I don't smell a thing. And then we just kind of looked at each other. It was like, wow. Oh crap, I got COVID, dude. And so I got tested the next day, and so that's how that happened. But yeah, I mean, I was still smoking that whole time. I wasn't really, I think the first day I kind of felt weak, like kind of sick, but then after that I was pretty much good. But yeah, I didn't stop for anything, anybody, like, and I wasn't, I have a huge family, and like I wasn't present at all whatsoever, like with any of them, I would see my family, but like,
did they know what was going on? Did they kind of know where you were at as far as?
Yeah, like I know, like my mom and my stepdad, they definitely knew, especially with like the breakup and stuff like that, and everything that, because it wasn't good. There was just a lot of, I don't know, just things that happened. Most of them brought on by myself, just because I was extremely mentally unstable, even before that, but I didn't really realize it. And so that was like, just like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I just, went off the deep end. And so, my mom and my stepdad, they knew that I was in a tough spot, emotionally and stuff like that. But I don't think they knew that I was like, doing all the stuff that I was doing. My mom knew that I was smoking weed and stuff like that. But you can't like overdose on weed, so like, I don't think she was like scared for my life, with just that. But if she would have known all the other things I was doing, she'd probably be a lot more worried. And so, me and my buddy Cohen, didn't mean to name drop him, but that's okay.
What's up, Cohen?
What's up, Cohen? He knows I'm doing this, actually. We're still like actually really good friends to this day. But me and him, we're going up to Mishawaka to look for apartments and jobs and stuff because we want to move up there. And so, at the same time, we would buy pain pills up there too while we were up there because like, I knew a guy that had them. And so it was like, kill two birds with one stone, find a job and get drugs, So,
Is that why you moved that direction?
That's not necessarily why I moved that direction. Bethel is in Mishawaka, and so I had already made some friends and some connections, and I lived there. I kind of know the area. It was far enough away from Manchester where I more than likely wasn't going to run into anybody that I knew, but it was also close enough that I could, it's like an hour, 15 minutes, so I can come and see my parents or go to my sister's games or something like that without it being like a super long haul. And so I remember it was either Thanksgiving of 2020 or around Thanksgiving time. And me and Cohen, we were up there and we had gotten some pills or we had asked the guy if we could get some. And he was like, well, I don't have any of like the regular ones we got. It was like these white pills, like these Percocets. He was like, but I have these, like those were 10 milligrams. He was like, I don't have the 10 milligrams, but I have 30 milligrams. And I was like, well, that sounds better, stronger. So I was like, sure, let's get them. And so they were like these little blue pills, like way smaller than the other ones. I was like, okay, this is kind of weird, but whatever, I'll get them. And so we got a couple like for each of us, and we came back to Manchester, and one of my other friends was kind of going through a breakup at that same time. So I was like, hey, I got some pain pills. Like, we'll just do them together and be sad together, I guess, or high together, whatever. And so, he had been drinking some that night. And so like, and I knew that, but I didn't know he drank as much as what he did. And, one thing you don't ever do is mix opiates and alcohol. Like that's a pretty good way to overdose.
Yeah. I think it's on the warning label.
Yeah.
That's when you get the container that has your name on it.
Right. We weren't doing that.
Okay.
So, and so so we go over there and, I, break it up and, he does a line and me and my buddy Cohen, we do some and, we're all sitting there and I remember, my friend, he had a beer in his hand and he was like, hey, can you put this up for me? Like, I'm feeling pretty good. I was like, sure. So I took it, put it in the fridge or something, came back. Remember, I looked at my phone. I remember like trying to focus on like what was on my phone screen. Cause like, I was like really high. Like I was, and I'd been doing pain pills, but I was like, these are like really strong. Like
three times.
Yeah. Like, but like the reason that being was cause I didn't know it at the time. But those pills were cut with fentanyl. And so they were fake pills. They weren't real. There was no opiate actually in it. It was actually just fentanyl. And so like you don't mix opiates and alcohol. Well, you definitely don't mix fentanyl and alcohol. Like that's for sure way to die, And so I was looking at my phone screen and then I noticed like my friend wasn't talking. So I look over at him and like he's like a Smurf, like just completely blue. Like, and I was like, I'd never seen someone overdose, but like I knew what it was like immediately. And so like I remember getting up, I was like, hey, and I start like smacking him in the face and like, shaking him and stuff and just like no response. And so like I like throw him on the ground and like I'm trying to do chest compressions, but like I'm also really high. So like I don't have like any strength. Like my arms were like noodles. And so I looked at Cohen, I was like, hey, you gotta call 911 like right now. And so he called 911 and they got there and they Narcaned him and, gave him chest compressions the correct way. Mm-hmm. And he was good, but like, thank God, because that was definitely a scary situation. And so I remember after that, Cohen, he was like, yeah, I'm flushing these. Like, they almost killed our best friend, like, and I was like, yeah, bro, that was messed up. Like, and so I remember I went home that night and I had him, I was in my bathroom and like, I was about to put him in the toilet. And then like, for some reason, I was just like, you know what? I'll keep them for like a rainy day, like, cause they were really good. I just got to be careful with them, like not do so much, only a little bit, And so I ended up storing them in like my nightstand and I kind of forgot about them And so then a month later, you know, I'm moving out of my parents' house, getting all my stuff, getting ready to go up to Mishawaka. And I found them. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about these. And so I like stuck them in my wallet. And then, you know, moved up to Mishawaka, got all our stuff in our apartment. And so now like I'm all by myself, you know, well, with my roommate Cohen and his girlfriend at the time. And so, but you know, for the most part, like, you know, I'm 19 years old, now living in my own apartment. Like, really, the main reason I moved up there was to run away from these issues that I was dealing with here, you know, but like the issues I was dealing with was like with myself, and you can't run away from yourself, you know.
Yeah.
You're gonna go there, turn around, oh, I'm still here, you know. And so you know, like the excitement of living there, you know, like lasted a week, you know, and then I'm like back to being just like sad and depressed immediately. And so, you know, I had those pills, and so I started doing those again, but I was doing like really small amounts, being, you know, safe with it or whatever. And so like I did that for like the first week to week and a half that I was living there. And then once those ran out, I was like, okay, I'm not going to buy any more of those. I just didn't want to waste the money that I spent on it, you know? But like I went right back to like drinking every day, Molly or shrooms or acid, or, you know, I got on this kicker of like mixing whatever I could mix, you know, which is super dangerous. You know, you should never do that. And, you know, at this point, the drug and alcohol usage has like skyrocketed. You know, the job I got up there, I started serving as a waiter, and, you know, I was pretty good at it. But I'm making cash money every single day. And for somebody that has a drug and alcohol problem, that is not the profession to get into at all. You know, walking home with $200 to $500 a day in your pocket. Like, yeah, so that wasn't good. And then all the friends I was making, you know, we were all drinking and you know, drugging and all this stuff. And so
do you recognize it was an addiction at this time? I mean,
I was starting to. I still hadn't been like physically dependent on any one drug, but like mentally, I was like, I can't wait to get home and get messed up, you know? And so, you know, I moved in very end of December. So basically like January 2021. And so I remember it was getting closer to like my 20th birthday. And I remember telling one of my friends that I've made down there, like, man, when I turn 20, like, I'm going to just stop doing all this stuff. I'm going to just stick to smoking weed and maybe drinking every once in a while. But like, this is getting kind of out of control. You know, like I was starting to have nights where like I was so high off of so many different things that I couldn't even tell you what I was high off of. Cause I was just like, you know, oh yeah, I'm going to do a little of this and do some of this and eat some of that and snort some of that, you know, like there was no breaks. Like I just didn't care, you know, like I had not a care for my life or the people I was affecting around me or anything like that. And so yeah, right around my 20th birthday, I decided to cut all that stuff out, just like cold turkey. And again, I wasn't physically dependent on anything, so I didn't really have like any withdrawals or anything like that. I was still smoking every day, but I started like working out more and trying to like, you know, be more productive, working more, and just like, I don't know, I was starting to feel like a piece of crap, you know, and I was like, I don't want to go down this, you know, hole, you know. And so I did good actually, like May of 2021, June, July, you know, I stuck to my word. You know, I still had friends and stuff that I was hanging out with. I was doing all the other stuff, and they'd be like, you want to, no, I'm good. I'm just, you know, going to smoke or whatever, or drink. And so then August of 2021, my uncle had a stroke, and literally the day after, so he got admitted to the hospital. This was like a Saturday. And he lived in Elkhart. So they took him to South Bend Memorial, which was like 5 minutes from my apartment. And so I met the rest of my family down there, and we're praying and stuff. And, you know, like my grandparents, my aunts and uncles and my mom and stepdad, they're all, you know, like faithful Christians, you know, like, and they were praying like expectant, like, God's going to be victorious in this. He's going to be okay, all this stuff. And so I remember I went home that night. That next morning, my roommate comes in and he's like, hey bro, your mom's trying to get a hold of you. And it was probably like 7 a.m., 8 a.m. And so like I remember my phone, it kind of like fell in between my bed and my nightstand. So I like reached down, I called my mom. I was like, hey, what's going on? And she's like crying on the phone. She's like, you need to go to the hospital like right now. I was like, okay, like, are you on your way there? She's like, no, I'm on the way to like one of the hospitals in Fort Wayne. I don't remember if it was DuPont or which one, but she's like, I'm on my way there. I was like, why? She was like, well, I was coughing up blood this morning and my chest just really hurts. And so I was like, okay. And so I go to the South Bend Memorial Hospital and my family's there. And basically what had happened was, so my uncle had a stroke like years ago, like when I was little, and it had damaged the left side of his brain. But there was still enough there that his brain could kind of rewire itself so that it would still, he could still live a normal life. And well, the second stroke completely decimated the right side of his brain. So all he had was like that kind of damaged part of the left side of his brain. So it was like, we could keep him alive, but he'd be on life support for the rest of his life, or we can let him go peacefully. And, that's not a decision any family ever wants to make, and like, my grandparents and my aunts and uncles, like they're some of the strongest people I know. And like to see them all so destroyed, like it did something to my soul that like I've never experienced in my life, like, yeah, it was super hard. And so, we're all going in there and like saying our goodbyes. And like, I have to FaceTime my mom who's at a different hospital so that she can say goodbye to her brother. And like, dude, it was really, really hard. Like really, really hard. Something that I never expected I'd have to do at 20 years old. And so then literally, so my uncle, he passes away. That next day, I'm getting up and heading to Fort Wayne so I can go see my mom. Well, she had a pulmonary embolism, which is like a blood clot in your lungs, which has like a 50% survival rate, 50 or 60, like, which I guess is still good, but that's still scary, like there's a 40% chance she could have died, And so, and like, I remember going in and seeing her and like her chest hurt so bad that she couldn't even cry. Like she wanted to, but like it hurt too bad. And like, again, it just did something to me. And so at this point, I've been doing good, like drugs and alcohol wise. And then like, I just get punched right in the face with all this stuff. And so like, I didn't know how to handle it, right? I didn't know how to deal with anything emotionally. All I've ever done before was use drugs and alcohol. And so I've been kind of like white knuckling, not using hard drugs for the last couple months. But now all this stuff happens and I have no idea how to handle it. I don't know how to talk about it. I don't know. The only thing I know how to do is just get messed up and not think about it. And so that's what I do. Immediately go back to drugs, start using drugs again. But this time I went right back to those little blue pills, that I hadn't really touched since the beginning of the year. But I knew they were really strong and I knew they were going to get me where I wanted to get to. And so I started using those every day. Well, fentanyl is extremely, extremely addictive. And so at this point, I still don't know that it's fentanyl. I just know they're really strong painkillers. And so, this happened like beginning of August. So by the end of October, I'm like probably doing like one of those pills a day, 1 to 2 of them. And I'm starting to feel like body withdrawals. Like if I don't have it, like I start having sweats, my back starts hurting, my neck, like I'm irritable, like nauseous, like just feeling sick, like I have the flu almost. And so I remember one day my mom had called me. This was like maybe a week before Halloween, 2021. And mothers, they just have like that intuition, right? And so she's talking to me and she's like, is everything okay? And like, and I was withdrawing, like I was trying to get some, but like the person that I would get them from wasn't answering me. And so like, I couldn't get a hold of him. And so I was like laying in bed withdrawing. I'm talking to my mom and, she asked me, are you okay? And, whenever someone asks you that and you're not okay, you just start crying. And and so I just started crying and I told her what was going on and that I've been using these pills and I think I'm addicted and all this stuff. And so she was like, okay. Do you think you need to get help? And so I was like, yeah, I think so. And so she like I don't know what she looked up on her phone, like Rehab or something, and she got like a number for like American Addiction Hotline or something like that. Sent me the number. I called them. they were like, okay, they check your insurance, make sure, you have insurance, and yeah.
Yeah, see if they can afford to help you.
Yeah, exactly. And so, they run it, make sure everything's all good. And they were like, okay, well, we have this place in Florida that we can send you to, and we can have you here tomorrow. Like we'll get you a plane ticket, all that stuff. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't think it was that easy, and go to rehab. So
Here
sweet.
we go, yeah.
Yeah, here we go. And so like that night, I'm like packing up my suitcase and everything. And like I spent that night still getting high, like my last little hoorah or whatever. And so, and then my roommate takes me to the airport so that I can fly to Florida. And so that was my first time going to rehab. So this would have been like end of October 2021. And so the first place I was at, I was there for like a week to 2 weeks or something like that. And I don't know, that it just wasn't ran very well. Like they didn't
have it together.
No, like it was very unorganized and they had like no food, which sounds crazy, but like as someone who's like coming off of drugs and stuff like that, food is something you definitely need, like good food, And so they had like these cafeteria, like high school little like lunchable lunches is what it seemed like, and cereal in the morning and stuff like that. And so, well, like when I was using drugs a lot, like I wasn't really eating that much, I didn't have much of an appetite. And so now I'm getting off drugs and my appetite comes back like times 10. So I'm like trying to eat everything around me.
Yeah.
And so I remember the first place I went to, they let you keep your cell phones, which is weird because every other rehab I'd gone to, like after that, because I went to a couple more, they always took your phone, or just kept it because they want you focused on your sobriety. But this first place I went to, they let you keep your phone. So I remember calling my mom. I was like, I cannot stay here. Like, I need to come home. I need you to give me a plane ticket or something. Like, I cannot stay here.
Send food.
Yeah, something like that. And so, so she's like, well, okay, hold on. Let me, check something out. And so she ends up calling like a couple different places, finds another rehab that's also in Florida. It was like 2 hours away. And they said they would come pick me up. And so yeah, that's what I ended up talking to him on the phone and got my stuff, and they came and picked me up and took me to this other rehab. And so this place was definitely a lot better food, but both places were secular places, so they went by the 12 steps, and they believed in the ideology of like, once an addict, always an addict. And so, I just kind of went along with it because I was just like, I don't know anything, and I'm, just started dealing with this addiction, whatever. And so I was like, I'll just take whatever I can learn kind of thing. And so, I met with like a therapist once a week for like 30 minutes. And, I am thankful for that because she kind of helped me work through some things, again, at a secular level, but still like just someone I could talk to. And I was kind of able to talk to, other than my mom, about some of these things that I've been struggling with. And she was able to give me sound advice, not necessarily biblical advice, but still sound advice. And so I was at that program for like 35 days or something like that. And then I went home right after. So this was like beginning of December was when I went home. And so, I was feeling pretty good. I think one of my main issues going to rehab that first time was I didn't feel like my addiction was as bad as some other people's, because like at this time in my mind, the only addiction I had were those one pills, not all the other years of doing all this other stuff. That was just me partying, that wasn't an addiction. I only had an addiction to these one things, but I don't want to do those anymore. I'm good. And so I went back home in December. My family's proud of me for wanting to get help, getting help, all this stuff. I'm feeling good, confident in myself, basically, that like, I got this, like I'm strong enough to not do this stuff, and like at that point I committed to not using weed or alcohol, especially not pills, or anything like that. And so, that lasted for about a month and then I started smoking weed again. But like I justified it. I was like, well, I won't smoke as much as what I was before. Cause like before I was smoking like an inhumane amount every single day. And so now I was like, I'll just smoke a bowl before I go to sleep to help me sleep, and justified it that way. Well, then that grew into, well, 1 in the morning to help me eat breakfast, 1 at night. And then next thing I know, I'm smoking all day again. And then by February, I start drinking again. And I remember I went on like a 3-week bender in February of like drinking every single day, which is really something I never did before. Like I would drink, but it was more like a social thing. Like I just drank just to like, I don't know, when I was at parties and stuff like that. But for 3 weeks straight, I drank every single day and got drunk every single day. And so by the end of that, I was like, man, what am I doing? Like, if I want to get messed up, I might as well do what I truly want to do, which is like these pills. And so I think beginning of March 2022, I had relapsed on the pills. I did it once and I felt really bad. I felt really guilty. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do that again. Like that was stupid, And so beginning of April, my family went to Florida for spring break. And so they asked me if I wanted to come with. And, my parents bought me a plane ticket. I was like, sure, this is awesome. They were proud of me for doing so good. And at this point, my parents don't think I'm smoking, drinking, or doing anything really. I'm working and working out and everything, putting on this picture that I'm doing really well. And so I go down to Florida, surprise my sisters, have a great time down there with them. I come back and I'm like, I had that little hiccup, but I did good, like I can probably just do it every once in a while and I'll be, like I have self-control now. I've learned more about myself. And so I remember it was like literally right after I got back, if not like a day, 2 days after, I went and did the pills again. And literally there was zero self-control. Like I did it that day and then I did it the next day. And next thing I know, I did it for a week straight. And now it's been a month straight. And now, before I've even turned 21, I'm back addicted to these pills. Except this time it's way worse than the first time. Because the first time, like I said, I was doing like maybe 1 to 2 pills a day. So, this was like April. My birthday was May 5th. So by the time I hit my 21st birthday, I was probably doing like 3 to 5 of them a day.
You're still working at this time?
And I'm still working at this time. I'm just, kind of juggling, I guess. Again, it's a server. I'm a serving position. So like, I don't know, it was probably a little easier to kind of do that while I was working.
So it didn't affect your work at all, really?
No. If anything, I would show up high, and if anything, I felt like it made me do better because I was more social.
Sure.
And like,
you're in a good mood.
Yeah, I'm in a great mood. Someone stiffs me, it's all right.
It's the best day ever, man.
Yeah, bro, it's whatever. We'll get through it. And so May, June, and really just May and June, I really have very little memory of because of how high I was like every single day. At this point, I'm not doing any other drugs except, these fentanyl pills. That's what I'll call them because that's what they are. I'm not touching anything, other than like maybe smoking weed. I'm not drinking at this time because, I know what happens if you drink and do pills. And so I'm strictly doing these pills, but like I'm high every single day. I would show up to work, I guess you could say buzzed. Like I wouldn't be so high where I'm at work and I'm like, nodding out or anything. But, as soon as I got off work, all night up until the next day, I'm doing some, passing out, waking up, doing more, passing out, waking up, and then checking my phone. Oh, I got to go to work in an hour, going to work, making money, going and buying more. And it's just this, rinse and repeat cycle. And so, come July, my family gets together for July 4th. My aunt has a lake house like up at the border of Michigan and Indiana. And so I'm up there for 4th of July. And like at this point, I'm so addicted that like I have to bring some with me, keep it in my car, and like strategically find times to go and do not a lot, but just a little bit, just enough to like not have me withdraw in front of my family. Not enough to make me seem high in front of my family, but just enough to not withdraw. And so I remember my mom, at this point, I was growing my hair out. And so I remember my mom was trying to braid my hair. And I was sitting there and I think I started crying because like I knew I needed to tell her. And so so I tried to kind of tell her, and it was hard to get out. But then I let her know that like that I'd relapsed and that it gotten really bad. And for my mom at this point, this is when she realizes that this is like an issue, like that her son might actually die from this. The first time, obviously she knew it was bad, but like she was proud of me. She was like, you know what, he told me and he went and got help and he's good now, like he's not like these other people who be stuck in addiction and, like she just thought I was good, And so, but then this second time me telling her, like she now realizes like, oh my gosh, this is actually serious. Like I might lose my son. And so the reason why I was telling her was because I'd already had set up for that next day that that I was going to go to a detox and get clean. Somewhere in like June, I think I tried to get clean on my own, but I would last maybe like 12 hours after my last use, and then I would have to. Like I just was so sick, I couldn't stand it. And it got so bad that like within like 4 or 5 hours, I would start withdrawing, like to the point where I started taking it with me to work. So I could go in the bathroom and do some like halfway through my shift so that I would make it through the rest of work without withdrawing. Because, you can't be serving people sitting there sweating bullets and like looking sick, Someone's going to be like, something's wrong with that guy, And so yeah, that was the reason. So I told my mom, but I'm like, again, like, it's okay though. Like I got it under control. Like I'm about to go to this detox. I'm going to get clean. Like it'll be okay. I just wanted to let you know. Cause like, I won't have my phone, and I don't want you to try to contact me and I don't answer, because even in my addiction, my mom would still call me probably at least once every 3 days, just checking up on me, And so if I didn't answer, she would have drove up there, broke down my door, asking questions, where am I at? Like it would not have been good. And so I went to that detox. I was there for I think 10 days. I remember I got out and, that was a rough detox. Like the first time I detoxed off them, again, I was doing 1 to 2 pills. I was withdrawing, but at that time I thought it was bad. But this time with doing 5 pills every single day and having a serious dependency to it, I mean, I want to say around day 5 is when I started to feel a little better. But the first day things start getting bad. The second, third, fourth, and honestly 5th day is just absolute hell. Like you're not sleeping. You're tremors, you're shaking, sweating, but you're freezing cold. Just emotionally, you just there's zero stability. You might be pissed off one minute, sobbing the next minute, laughing hysterically. It's just I felt like a psycho. I felt like I should be in an insane asylum, it was not good. And so, by day 5, I started to feel a little better. Day 6, a lot better. 7, a lot better. So by day 10, I felt physically normal, but mentally there was still this fog. I just felt, I don't know, I felt weird. And so I got out of that detox and, a week later, I'm still feeling kind of weird. 2 weeks later, still this mental fog. And so 2 or 3 weeks out of this detox, I relapsed again. Cause I don't know. I was so, what's the word? I guess just confused. I felt like I needed those pills to be normal, I guess.
And once you started taking those, did you still feel like you were in that fog, or did that take care of that?
It took care of it. I felt like I was clear-minded again and I was good. And again, I had the idea that I would just do it. Now that I'm clean, I'll just do it with control now. But I'd only been clean for not even a month yet. And so my tolerance hadn't gone down at all. So I'm right back up to doing 5 pills a day, but now it's progressing even more. And so come August or whatever, my mom, she, again, that mother's intuition, she kind of knew. And which before I told her in July, I think she kind of knew, but she just didn't want to believe it. And so she never asked any questions. And so, but now this time she's my son's not going to die, not on my watch, And so I don't remember if she had asked me. I think she did. I think she said are you back on the pills? And again, at this point, I had a very open relationship with my mom. So I was just yeah, I am. And I remember she was all right, you need to go somewhere again. Do you want to find a place or you want me to find a place? So I was like, you go ahead and find a place. Cause like, I'm not, I'll say I'll do it, but I won't, like I knew that much about myself. And so at this point, August 2022, it's progressed to like, I'm using like 10 of these pills a day. And like, to give you some perspective, when I did them with my one friend who overdosed, he did half of one when he overdosed. Now, granted, he had alcohol in his system too, but like that just shows the strength of these and like my tolerance buildup and dependency on them for me to have to do 10. And really at this point, I wasn't even getting high. It was more like maintenance. Like I was using 10 a day just to like not be sick at all. That's how dependent I was on these pills. And so my mom, I think at this point she had looked up a faith-based rehab. She's like, we've tried these other rehabs, they're not working. And like, I feel like ever since I was in high school, my mom's always told me like, you need more Jesus, you need more Jesus. I'm like, whatever, mom, like that's just the thing you say,
Because after so many rehabs, and those steps, I'm thinking after so many rehabs, those steps become the stairway to heaven.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what
it just never ends.
Yeah, no. It's like, I think one thing I didn't like about like the 12 steps or whatever is, you would get a chip, right? Like 1 day of sobriety, here you go. 30 days of sobriety, here you go. 60 days. And then it's like, oh, you relapsed. Okay, that's okay. Like, here's one chip. And so like the mental image I get in my head is like, okay, you're like moving forward. Oh, you messed up. So now you have to start back at step 0, right? But one thing I learned with like, following Jesus is, you grow with him, you learn, you messed up. That's okay. Pick yourself back up. We keep moving forward. Like there's no starting back at step 0. You can pick up right where you left off and keep going. Like he's that good. He'll wait for you,
Yeah.
And so anyways, my mom, she found this place called Spring to Life, in Tennessee. And, she talked to this guy named Mike and, she was like, told him what's going on. And he, kind of explained to her how the program was, all this stuff. And then he asked her at the end, like, can I pray with you? And so like him doing that, like it just like confirmed in my mom's spirit, right, that like this is the place Isaiah needs to go to, because no one ever done that before, especially not the other rehabs. They believe in like you should find a higher power, something to believe in. But I mean, it could be that water bottle over there, like whatever.
As long as your insurance covers it,
Right. And so he had prayed with her and she was just like, yeah, this is the place. And so she told me, hey, I found this place. This is where I think you need to go. And so like she sent me the information. I was like, faith-based. I was like, why don't I go back to the one in Florida? This is in some small town.
Because they had good food.
Yeah, right. They had a professional chef there. Like,
that's my people.
It was really close to the beach. Like, and the thing is like that one I went to, it was co-ed, so there were guys and girls in there, which, you can just use girls as a distraction from like your actual problems. This one in Tennessee was an all men's program. I was like, I don't want to be with a bunch of dudes, And so, so I kind of like fought her on it, but like, bless my mom's heart. I think God really confirmed it for her that like this was the place. And so she was able to stand firm, like my whole life I was always manipulating my mom and like, but like with this, she was like, no, like this is where you're going. And so this is like beginning of August or middle of August when she finds out about this place and says, and so she's like, when do you want to go? And I'm like, well, I gotta pay my car payment. I got to figure out what I'm going to do about this. And like trying to like make these excuses, it's like, dude, you're fully addicted to fentanyl and you're worried about your car payment, like you could die tomorrow, And so like my mom was like, okay, get that stuff figured out. And so I just kept kind of pushing it off. And then at some point my mom was like, all right, September 10th, that's when, me and Josh, my stepdad, that's when we're going to take you. And that's that, and I kind of tried to buck it and she was like, no, like we're taking you this day, And so I was like, all right, whatever, like I wanted the help, but like at the same time, I really think Satan was at work in me because he knew what was going to happen when I went to Spring to Life. And so, September 10th rolls around and I remember the day before it was my last day of work, serving. I think I told my boss that I just found a new job or something, but really I was like, I'm gonna be gone for a while, And so, so I think I made like $200 or something like that. So I took that money, I bought like 17 of those pills. I was like, if I'm going to rehab, I'm going out with a bang kind of thing. And so like that night, like between, I probably got off, got those pills, got back home. It was probably midnight. So just between like midnight and let's say like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the morning, I did 10 of them. And then I packed up the other 7 to take with me like in the car ride, because I knew I was going to like sit in the back and like hide from my parents or whatever. Because it's a 7-hour drive from North Manchester all the way to Woodbury, Tennessee. And so, well, like I said before, within 3 or 4 hours, I'm withdrawing. So I was like, I'm not going to be withdrawing in the car. Like that will be the worst thing ever, And so I like packed up 7 of them, like I crushed them up or whatever, so that I could do some in the car on the way down there. And I thought I was so slick. I was like, my parents 100% knew. But I think, I don't know. Honestly, I'm not sure why they didn't say anything, but I don't think it would have mattered if they did, And so I think they probably knew that. And so they were just like, you know what, we're taking him there. He's going to get the help he needs. And so, yeah, they took me to Jackson, Tennessee first. I went to a detox there. Again, the detox was really, really rough. Like I didn't sleep for 7 days straight. I didn't eat for 7 days straight. And so I was there for a week, and then they took me to meet with the S2L people. And then they took me to their rehab facility. And so yeah, this is where the story starts to get better, So there's all that depravity, all that really bad stuff. But I show up to Spring to Life, and, they're a faith-based recovery program. But not only just that, like they truly believe in like freedom in Christ. And so like, how I said before, the other place I went to, once an addict, always an addict. They're like, no, like we do not believe in that at all. We believe once you've been set free by the Son, like he's free indeed, Yeah. And so, so like that first day that I got there, so like you're assigned a life coach who's basically someone who's like spiritual guidance, and like almost 95% of the employees there all went through the program.
Okay.
So like they have this like this heart for the ministry because they went through it and have experienced it themselves.
They believe in it.
They believe in it, and they believe in the work that Jesus does because he's done it in their own lives. And so like, so I show up here and I'm meeting these staff members that work there, and like I just see this like joy that they have and this happiness, and like I'm just like I don't understand. Like you're telling me you did the same things I was doing, some of them even worse, in addiction way longer, homeless, stuff like that. Yet, you're walking around like with this glow, like this, like you're smiling and you're just genuinely happy. I was like, I don't understand. Like this just doesn't make sense. And so, that night, they have staff members there 24/7 because it's a medical facility. So you have to have people there consistently. And so my coach, his name was Larry, and he worked that night. And so when my first night getting there, I still couldn't sleep. And so I ended up staying up, and we're all down in the basement. And so I go upstairs, and, Larry's up there. I was like, hey man, I can't sleep. Is it okay if I just hang out up here with you? And he was like, yeah, that's fine. And so we get to talking and stuff. And like at this point, he had introduced himself and told me that he was my coach. I didn't know what that even really meant. I was just like, okay, cool, whatever. And so we get to talking. He starts telling me a story and like, again, like things that were really, something similar to mine, but then like, even worse, went even deeper. But like, he just has like this, again, this peace and this joy about him. And he starts talking about the Bible and like starts reciting scripture and, talking about Jesus and like how he radically saved him. And I was just like, I remember just looking at him. I'm like, I don't know what he's got, but I want it. Like I want whatever he has. I was like, this guy's my coach. Whatever he tells me to do, I'm going to do it. And so I remember he leaves at like 5:30 in the morning. He'd work from like 5:30 at night to 5:30 in the morning. And so I remember he was getting ready to leave, and I was like, hey, like, I'm going to start reading my Bible today. Like, do you recommend a book I should read? And he was like, well, start with like Ephesians. And so that day I started reading Ephesians, and like, again, I grew up in church. So I've read the Bible, not necessarily all of it, but like I've read it, enough of it. But like I'm reading it this time, and it's like the words are jumping off the pages. Like things are starting to click, It was still kind of hard for me to understand some things and read. I think most of that was just because I hadn't slept in a week, so my brain probably wasn't working at full capacity. But I don't know, God just really started speaking to me through his word. And then, so we would have classes every day. And what's crazy is like being there, we really didn't talk about addiction a lot. Like we did, but we talked about it as a sin issue, not just like addiction, And so when you address the sin issue and then give the solution, that being Jesus, things start making more sense, instead of like, oh, you just need to, make sure you're going to therapy, which not knocking therapy. I think therapy is great. We had therapists there that we'd meet with, or, oh, you just need to make sure you're going to these groups every day. Like all these man-made stuff. Right. And it's like, I tried to save myself over and over and over again. I tried to do it in my own strength. But there's only one savior, and it's not Isaiah Davis, And so, I start having these realizations that like, everything that I've been doing, there's been one key thing I've been missing, and that's Jesus, And so, this is all within like the first week that I'm there. Like I start, and like all of a sudden I'm like being overwhelmed with this peace and this joy and this hope that I can finally grab onto, because for so long I was hopeless. Like I was there towards the end, before I went to this rehab, like I was convinced that I was going to die in my addiction, and and that was that. And like quite frankly, I wanted to. I hated myself. I just didn't want to live anymore, And so, but now, like I have this hope that like I can change my life around, and like things will actually be okay, And so the first week you're there, you're on like this blackout period. So you don't get like any phone calls or anything like that. And so, this whole time my mom's like kind of stressing. Like she's like, oh, did I take him to the right place? Like, is he okay? All this stuff. And, I remember, so like my coach, he would get in contact with her, and let her know like, hey, I'm going to be coaching your son, stuff like that. And so before he called her, I remember he asked me like, hey, is there anything you want me to tell your mom? And I was like, yeah, tell her I love her and that I'm in the right place. And, for my mom, that was huge, because like she was, the enemy was working on her like, oh, you took him to the wrong place, like he's going to run away from that, like crazy thoughts. And so then when my coach calls her and tells her this, like it rocked her world, I guess you could say, and just made her, all of her prayers were answered, in that moment. And something that she had been praying for me like a lot over the last couple of years was that I would have like a mentor in my life, someone to like bring me closer to Jesus. And so, going to S2L, I ended up gaining like 20 or 30 mentors, like men that to this day are still very close to me that I can lean on in difficult times, So yeah, it's been quite a journey, from where I was to where I am now. I got to S2L a year from last month. It was September 18th, 2022. And so, it's been a year since I've, used any drugs or alcohol or anything like that. The program was 6 weeks. And then there's an optional phase 2 that you can do, which is another 6 weeks, which it's still the same curriculum, everything else, just a little more in depth, right? They go a little more in depth with like the principles that they teach. And so I decided, like, oh, I want to do that. Like, I want to stay as long as I can. I want to get as much out of this as I can, And so after phase 2, most people, they go home, but if you want to, you can write an intern letter and try to get accepted to be an intern at S2L and give back and serve, basically. And so I didn't want to at all. I really wanted to go home. I mean, 12 weeks in the program, 3 months I've been away from home. I was like, you know what? I would love to go home. But God just kept putting it on my heart to write an intern letter. And so I was like, all right, I'll just write it. But, there's a chance it might not get accepted. So, really, I'm just putting it in God's hands. If it doesn't get accepted, I'm supposed to go home. If it gets accepted, then, I know what that means, Yeah. And so I wrote it. It got accepted. I interned for 3 months, from December until March. Towards the end, they had asked me if I wanted to go on staff. And so, again, I didn't really want to, but I felt like God wanted me to. And so I decided to go on staff. So that was in March. And so since then I've been on staff at S2L, now doing what Larry does, being a life coach and like coaching guys and helping to point them to Jesus, like I can't necessarily teach them anything, but I can show them the one who can, And so, and it's been an honor. I never thought, literally a little over a year ago, if you would have told me I'd be where I'm at right now, I mean, I was convinced I was going to be dead before I was 22, And so, by the grace of God, I'm not, and I'm still here, and I'm able to do stuff like this and share my story and, not even really my story, God's story through my life, and hopefully help give other people hope when, at one point I had none, but it was through other people's stories that then gave me hope,
Absolutely. And a mother's prayer.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm
so thankful for my mother's prayers.
Being persistent.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
We're so glad you're here, man. We're so glad you're sharing your story. We appreciate it so much, man.
Yeah. I'm super grateful to be able to do this. It's just, in Revelations 12:11 it says, by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony will overcome him, Satan. And so I really do believe that we need to, if we have a story, we need to share it, and everybody has a story at the end of the day. And so I'm just honored to still be alive to be able to do that, So yeah.
We're glad you are, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, man, of course.
Awesome. I just want to thank everyone for joining in and watching and listening wherever you are. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe and support this ministry, support this platform for normal people like Isaiah with extraordinary stories, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's awesome, man. Thank you so much.